Nate Diaz is easy work. I think Nate's a tough fight, but he's not as tough as some of the guys in MMA that have fought, says the YouTuber turned boxer on the MMA Hour after defeating one of UFC's former champions in boxing, Anderson Silva, this past Saturday. The MMA world celebrates Halloween. The former UFC middleweight champion shows off budget in an Instagram post caption, "Really scraping the barrel this year." Also in this video, UFC welterweight Jason Witt has decided to hang up his gloves after suffering a back-to-back knockout loss in the UFC. This release will be really exciting. Before we continue to provide you with all the juicy deets, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more juicy and interesting stories you don't want to miss out. Thanks in advance! Jake Paul doubles down on Nate Diaz callout, calls him easy work compared to Anderson Silva. I want Nate Diaz, who is a bitch. He made an attempt to enter my locker room. He attempted to make trouble. Then, as usual, he exits the arena. Nate Diaz quit being a bitch and fight me, Paul stated in his post-fight interview. Paul defeated Silva on Saturday in a unanimous decision, earning the biggest win of his boxing career in the process. The triumph was capped off by a knockdown in the 8th round. Following his victory, Paul focused on Diaz, who had briefly accompanied Chris Avila to the Desert Diamond Arena to cheer his teammate. The former UFC legend got into a fight with Paul's team backstage before being dragged out of the arena, and the problem child then challenged him to a fight. Fans have been matchmaking this fight, and many believe that Diaz's decision to leave the UFC was motivated by his desire to fight Paul. Nothing is stopping the two fighters from finally putting on the super fight now that Diaz has completed his UFC contract and is simply waiting for the promotion's matching period to conclude. For Paul, it's a no-brainer. On the MMA Hour with Ariel Helvani, Paul remarked, "If he's actually out of his UFC contract, I would be down. Nate Diaz is easy work, considering I recently defeated one of the greatest MMA competitors ever. Compared to Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva is far more challenging. He's slow and he's nearing the end of his career," Paul added. "He's lost it in terms of striking. He may still have jiu-jitsu, but when it comes to striking and all that, he's just a street fighter. Boxing is the purest form of sport. It's an artwork," he continued. "In a boxing match, you cannot come in and street fight someone. Anderson is taller, has length, hits harder, is more slippery, has better head movement and lots more. So I know Nate is less difficult." The question is whether the fight will take place at all. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Diaz was known as a tough negotiator during his UFC tenure, and as he's currently in the process of establishing his own fight promotion, the younger Diaz brother might not be centered on his own fight career at the moment. Meanwhile, Paul seems to see a few options he could pursue as he prepares to return early next year. "I feel like definitely professional boxer is the #1 criticism," Paul said. But again, anyone who is smart knows that Anderson Silva is a real professional boxer who just beat a former world champion. So I'm not sure. But at this point, I'm just going to do whatever fuck I want and fight whoever shows up. MMA celebrates Halloween. Robert Whittaker shows off budget costumes. The MMA world celebrated Halloween in style this year, with many fighters decorating themselves with their spookiest wigs and makeup, showing off their impressive and sometimes hilarious costumes. Robert Whittaker, the former UFC middleweight champion, was one of the stars. He didn't spend a lot on his costumes though, as he revealed in an Instagram post captioned, "Really scraping the barrel this year." Other notable MMA figures who got into the Halloween spirit including Demetrius Johnson, who dressed up as a Black Panther, Dr. Doom mashup, and Cub Swanson and Kenda Perez forming theirs own Power Ranger squad. Also the MMA legend Bas Rutten dressed as a zombie in an Instagram photo. This Beetlejuice color for Karate Combat tonight. Who did it best in 2022? Comment below. UFC welterweight Jason Witt announces retirement from MMA. And lastly, in today's video, Jason Witt, a UFC welterweight champion, has announced his retirement from MMA. The 6-fight Octagon veteran took to his social media on Sunday night to announce his retirement from mixed martial arts competition. "It's taken me a week to decide how to put this into words because nothing seemed to sum up what it means to me, but here it goes. I'm officially retired from mixed martial arts," he wrote. This decision came from the gorilla after 28-fight pro runs, going 19-9 and 2-4 inside the UFC octagon, but earned his opportunity to compete for the UFC by being incredibly active on the regional scene, having bouts under the Bellator, LFA, and Titan FC banners. On less than a week's notice, the 35-year-old made his UFC debut and was defeated by Takashi Sato at UFC on ESPN 12 in June 2012. Witt went on to win his first octagon match 4 months later by submission against Cole Williams. Witt received his first UFC bonus in a fight of the night clear majority win against Ryan Barberena at UFC Vegas 33 in July 2021. After being stopped in the initial round by Matthews Emmelsberger at UFC Vegas 21 in March 2021. Witt's last 2 fights ended in defeats to Phil Rowe and most recently Josh Quinlan at UFC San Diego. Witt's journey was a success because he completed his major goal of participating in the world's largest MMA promotion. For the past 15+ years, I dedicated myself and my life to MMA, Witt said. Through literal blood, sweat, and tears, it taught me how to be disciplined, how to overcome adversity, and how to be humble and respectful. It forced me to grow up to become the man I needed to be to reach my goal to fight in the UFC. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. I'm closing this chapter in my life, but I'm very excited for what the future holds. Many UFC fighters have retired from the sport with mixed results. Randy Couture had found success as an actor and a businessman, while Chuck Liddell struggled with alcohol abuse. It remains to be seen what Jason Witt's next career will be, but he seems to be on the right track.